As much as I love to spotlight the noses, the perfumiers, the architects of every single fragrance I review on my channel, sometimes we just need to sit back and take a look at their resume. And I do that sometimes when I review a fragrance. I take a look at their resumes, either on Fragrantica or whatnot, and I go, wow, this person has got some talent here. So I love to do this type of series here, and I'm bringing it back today. I know that I did this back in 2010 when my creative juices were flowing, and I introduced this series. It never really panned out as a series because all I did was Jean-Claude Helena. And I really want to redo that one because I didn't give him the just due that I should have. But today we're going to look at Anne Gottlieb's work. And we're going to see what she has done in our fragrance industry, right down to the history, her body of work, how many fragrances she has touched upon us that us reviewers talk about. It's always nice just to see what they do. So let's get into Anne Gottlieb's work. Now, before we get into the fun stuff for Anne Gottlieb, and that's showing all the fancy little bottles that I have that she has done, I always like to look back, and this is the interesting part, is the history. How did the perfumery get into this? Where are they now? And just everything in the middle. I do have a couple quotes from her. I watched a whole bunch of stuff on her. She won at the Fragrance Foundation Awards just recently, that just passed. She went into the Hall of Fame. So really somebody that has an interesting career. So let's take a look at it. So Anne started her career at Revlon, but she really learned her ropes when she went to Estee Lauder immediately after. She learned the artistry of fragrances, the science behind them. And the most important, I think, the most important take that she got from Estee Lauder is that she got the business portion of fragrances under the personal tutelage of Mrs. Estee Lauder herself. Looking back at everything from Anne Gottlieb is, I really felt like that portion of her life really just cemented what she was going to do after that. And I really think a lot of perfumiers in our game don't really grasp or don't want to grasp. They're really more about the artistry of fragrances. She was more focused on the business, the marketing, and she kind of knew what the consumer wanted more than just looking at a fragrance as a piece of art. There's two great ways of looking at it, and it's just like niche versus designer, and people that, you know, a lot of fragrances that just smell alike just for sales, and then there's other fragrances that just are way out there and they get discontinued in the designer game. So there is different ways to look at it. At this time, Anne took her next steps as a nose in the Estee Lauder's house. She obviously got a lot of trust and love from Estee Lauder, that Anne's nose continued to be utilized by Estee Lauder, and her success and her interest really grew in perfumery at that time. In her time in the Estee Lauder house, and with less than 7 years under her belt, she became the head of development for Elizabeth Arden and Warner Cosmetics, at the time being under Ralph Lauren fragrances. Now here's a quote of Anne Gottlieb's time back in Estee Lauder, and her quote is, "I was working at Estee Lauder and didn't have any knowledge that I actually had a terrific sense of smell. I met Estee and she became a mentor to me. The way that she worked is that she would give fragrances out to everybody to smell and get their opinion. She would ask me and continue to ask me more and more. I guess I answered her in a way that was helpful to her and honest. So she brought me into her development world, and it was there that I learned that I had something special." Anne did found her company, her own company called Anne Gottlieb Associates in 1983. During her speech actually at the Fragrance Foundation, she did say that there was no associates, it was just me. Her business creates for wide ranges of fragrance industries, including of course fragrances. One of her biggest clients is Calvin Klein, but also many body care products. And you're going to see that if you do some research on Anne Gottlieb. Anything that needs a pleasant smell, things like soaps, body sprays from Axe, among many others. She had some unique work with, of course, Bath and Body Works, Victoria's Secrets, and of course, Axe body sprays, which is another huge client of hers. And her brand is really a liaison between the brands and the noses, pretty much. So she pretty much is a hired creative director and has been very successful at it. So basically, let's take one of our bigger clients at Calvin Klein. They want to release a new fragrance. They go to Anne and they go, "Anne, this is, you know, what we want. We want a new fragrance." They may give her some sort of brief and she makes everything happen and probably goes back to them with a final product that she's happy with. And I know that she's pushed a lot of great fragrances to Calvin Klein, most notably CK1 back in the day. So she is very, very successful. And Axe, we all know about her work with Axe. When researching Anne, I felt that she was very unique nose in the industry, as her business mind was more of a quality than her nose. And that's a huge compliment to her business mind. Her marketing and her true understanding of global brands and different culture behaviors and tastes are a huge asset to any brand. Many noses ignore that part of business and are artist only. So I gotta give Anne where credit is due. Anne has over 25 years of experience. If my math is correct, 2018 is her 50th year in the industry. So very, very outstanding. You can't replace that kind of talent, especially long-standing like that. You can't be bad at something and stay within the industry for 50 years. So she is very, very successful. A fun fact with Anne Gottlieb is something that I discovered with researching her is she wakes up at 5:15 a.m. every single morning, and she believes the nose is the most sensitive in the early hours of the day. It's also not uncommon for her to wear a scent overnight to test longevity and make a judgment in the morning. I do that. Which personally, I do that when writing my reviews. So I was kind of like, oh, a professional does it too. So I'm not a little crazy here. So when she plans to meet friends too, she wears a scent she's working on to get that kind of feedback. Same here, not on the same level. Of course, I do fragrance reviews. She makes a lot of money with fragrances. So sometimes I do wear some stuff that I feel I'm not getting enough information or something like that. And just see if I'm going to get a rise out of friends, family, stuff like that. So it's very interesting. And that interested me that somebody so high in the fragrance industry does the same things that I do. So it was a fun fact. Prices that she received or any mentions of her, I was looking around or scouring the internet for that. A lot of them came out in the 2000s. So she won a CEW Achiever Award in 2002, awarded for her contribution to the fragrance industry by Cosmetic Executive Women. In 2004, she won the Living Legend Award, awarded for her innovation contributions to the fragrance industry by the American Society of Perfumiers. Next, she won the Circle of Champions Award in 2006, awarded for her notable and unique impact on the fragrance industry by the Fragrance Foundation. And lastly, just recently in 2018, made the Hall of Fame for the Fragrance Foundation. She is a leading global fragrance consultant, and she helps out knowing the steps of successful fragrances. She mentions that concepts are primary. She considers herself an artist with a business nostril. 100%. That's how I feel about Anne Gottlieb's work. She firmly believes in keeping in mind to what sells at the moment. So she is great for a designer brand. She's very much on the path of what is selling, and she will go after that. Her style is, to me, and this is no knock to her, but fairly simplistic. Again, these are things like she builds fragrances for Calvin Klein, Herrera, Coty, Elizabeth Arden, Marc Jacobs, Axe, things like that. So I would have to say simplistic, And another fun fact is that she famously tried to insure her nose. So brands that she worked with over the years, looking at her resume, she worked with Avon, Axe. She has 24 cents for her body sprays. Popular Axe fragrances, I guess Dark Temptation and Africa would be popular. She's worked with Benetton. Calvin Klein, 10 cents in total. Herrera, the 212 series, Coty, Elizabeth Arden, Impulse, Marc Jacobs, Oscar de la Renta, Sarah Jessica Parker, Yardley. Her earliest fragrances released in 1988 and 87, male and female, was Avon's Facets and Benetton's Color of Benetton Man. The fragrance I own that are under her name, under Fragrantica, I really think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't really believe that she was the nose behind it. I really think that she was the creative director behind it. She may have helped build these scents. So I'm going to give her the just due because I couldn't find any information if she actually was the one that was the perfumier behind it or it was worked with somebody else. A lot of these do have like IFF title to them. So I'm thinking it was in conjunction. But either way, let's take a look at the ones I own. It's not too much. It's not a big list. So let's take a look at it. The first one is Marc Jacobs Bang, the Pepper Bomb. We got, of course, the best-selling from Herrera, 212 Men. We also have Calvin Klein. Her imprint is, of course, all over Calvin Klein. Calvin Klein Man, and, of course, CK1 Shock for him, which is the most recent release. Her name is attached to a lot of Calvin Klein fragrances, but like my research has shown, she's pretty much their creative director. They go to her, and she builds these scents for her. So, or she goes and finds noses, she gets the scents, and then gives CK the briefs for those fragrances, and then they pick and choose which one they'll be releasing. So I'm going to pick my top 3 favorites out of these 4. I would have to go with CK1 Shock is one I think is great. The next one, it'd have to be one of the best sellings, 212 Men from Herrera. And then thirdly, I'm going to go with 212 Bang here. 212. Marc Jacobs Bang. This one also a very solid scent, so top 4. There you go. They're all pretty much around the same. As far as quality goes, I would have to say they're all around the same thing. So again, with more research on Anne Gottlieb, I really couldn't find anything because it seems like she worked in conjunction on these projects and not too sure if she truly put them together herself or she was the creative director under it and got the name under as the perfumier. If she was, then she was behind many other projects and many other scents, including one of her hugest successes that she's very proud of is CK1, among many other Calvin Klein scents, which her name is attached to. There is a quote with Anne for the CK1 project, which she wrote, most of perfumiers we approached came up with the men's cologne for CK1, and they really wanted something truly unisex, and that were just slightly less masculine. After a lot of trial and error, she and the team realized that they needed citruses and settled on the famous bergamot and pineapple tinged blend developed by fragrance house Firmenich. So from Bath & Body Works scents to her work with CK, including Obsession Eternity, CK1, a woman that knows exactly what the customer wants. Even celebrities like Britney Spears, J-Lo needed a fragrance. They went to Anne to get the ball rolling for their fragrances. She also said people smell with their brains and eyes before they smell with their noses. She knows the importance of marketing, and that is something that also, as a reviewer, I don't emphasize too much on it because I'm not here to sell the fragrance, but I do know that you can attract a customer with a beautiful bottle, great ad, all that. Name, same thing, but if the fragrance inside doesn't really match, like if Encre Noire came out with that inky looking bottle, all black, and it was just a really bright citrus fragrance, you'd be like, what, really? Confusion there. So I do understand where she comes from, and she gets it. She gets it. So I really, really love it. Her favorite notes to work with, she said, is fruits, florals. She really loved working with Bath & Body Works to really settle with some fruity tones in a lot of their lineup. Her obsession, no pun intended, because she did work on obsession, is vanilla. That note for her brings back memories back in the day. One last quote from Anne Gottlieb is, "I can smell 100 things in a row and still be confident that I can smell accurately." So to finalize this spotlight on Anne Gottlieb, I really felt like when I was researching her very interesting background, I learned a lot. That name always did pop up in some of my reviews. Most notably, I've reviewed most of the fragrances that are in front of me here with 212 and a lot of the Calvin Kleins and Marc Jacobs lineup, and really her hand into those brands and where did that come from. It was really, really interesting, and very much a creative mind, business mind, and a marketing mind too. So very, very rare, and an excellent nose that knows how to sell. You know, CK1 tells you everything that you need to know about Anne Gottlieb. So as always, thank you for watching. We can do a subscriber's choice on this. I don't mind. With what kind of nose would you like me to tackle next? Talk about their backstory, the fragrances, take out the fragrances that I own from them, and go from there. There's a lot of great talent out there that I would love to, that I'd really like to share the spotlight with all of you out there. Very, very interesting. So again, thank you so much for watching. Have a good one.